Okay, Chair, we are now streaming live on YouTube, and I'm handing the meeting over to you.
Good evening and welcome to East Devon District Council's virtual Cabinet meeting this evening, 28th of October 2020. I'm the leader of the council and your chair this evening, Councillor Paul Arnott. I'd like to welcome anyone also watching this meeting via live stream on YouTube. Everybody here today is taking part remotely as well as being live streamed, and the meeting's being recorded, so please bear this in mind throughout, and may I remind you to be careful with your language. Also that the Members' Code of Conduct applies, of course, throughout the meeting. We reserve the right to remove and disconnect any participant who is disrupting the meeting by whatever means. Please, if you can turn any telephone devices off or to silent. The meeting is dependent upon the internet connection, power supply. If it's off, try to reconnect as soon as possible, but if after 15 minutes we can't, then we'll have to adjourn the meeting and reconvene at a later date. And details will be on the committee page, the Cabinet Committee page of our website for details. Please make sure, members, that all of your microphones are muted when you're not speaking. And if I can just ask you to keep points short and not to repeat points that have already been made, and do not interrupt. If you wish to comment, please raise your electronic blue hand and wait to be called. All councillors have been sent the agenda for today's meeting, and members of the public who wish to view it can do so by visiting the website eastdevon.gov.uk. So we'll now start the meeting with a roll call of the Cabinet Committee members here present. Cabinet, can you please now unmute your microphones, and when you hear your name, please confirm by saying present. When you've confirmed you're present, please mute your microphone again. I'll hand over to Amanda Coombes to take the roll.
Councillor Arnott.
Present.
Councillor Haywood.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Armstrong.
Present.
Councillor Bailey.
Present.
Councillor Young.
Present.
Councillor Ledger.
Present.
Councillor Lude. Councillor Loudon. Councillor Miller.
Present.
Councillor Rickson.
Present.
Councillor Rowland.
Present.
I can confirm that you are quorum today, Chair.
Thank you very much, Amanda. And so we now move on down through the agenda. Agenda item 1 is public speaking. The first speaker that I've got listed here is Ms. Gillian Adamson, who wishes to speak at item 15, homelessness strategy. Can I just ask if Ms. Adamson is present and if she's happy to speak at that item, or would she prefer to do so now?
Yes, I'm ready. I can speak now.
You'd like to go now, or would you like to wait until the item itself? Gillian?
No, I can speak now. That's fine.
Right, lovely. Okay, please. I think you've got 3 minutes, so in your own time. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to speak about a homeless, vulnerable man who has been sleeping rough in the shelter in Fear Park for the last 2 months. I see him every day when I walk my dogs. I take him sandwiches and fruit, etc. He wouldn't accept cash from me. Friends in Need website donated him clothes and shoes, which I took to him, and he was very grateful. I reported his homelessness to StreetLink several times, and they in turn reported it to East Devon District Council. I eventually received a phone call from Danielle in the homeless department of the housing department. She told me not to approach this homeless man, implying he was violent or dangerous in some way. Nothing could be further from the truth. I asked her what was being done for him, and she replied they were not an emergency service. I told her not to be so rude. Her tone and manner were very rude. I also said that if you are the department responsible for helping homeless people, then surely you are an emergency service. He is a vulnerable man with mental health issues who has a mother and children living in the area. His doctor has written a letter to East End District Council stating he has mental health issues which have been made worse and long-term by being homeless. Why is this man being refused housing by East End District Council? And where is the trail of decisions that have been made about him? Why isn't his homelessness being looked at on a daily basis? I thought the guidelines in this country were that no one had to sleep rough for 2 nights in a row, let alone 2 months. I've sent photographs of him sleeping rough to anybody who I thought would help him. My MP, the Salvation Army, and 2 local councillors. But still, after all these weeks, he is homeless. I've written a letter of complaint about his homelessness and his treatment to East End District Council's J. Golding, but I've received no reply. Are politics affecting the decisions made about him?
30 seconds.
His name is Scott Bayliss. He gave me permission to give you his name, and I'm desperately worried about him, which is why I'm speaking at this meeting. I'm not the only person who has reported his vulnerability to both StreetLink and my MP. Please, can the Housing Department help him instead of ignoring him? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madame Adamson. I can see that you have corresponded in the last 5 days, actually, most recently. And I can see there's a letter back to you from our MP as well. I don't know if it's appropriate. Can I just, Paul Miller, this is something you've been aware of as well. Is there anything you can help us here with by way of comment or information?
I think Councillor Ollie Davey has been just equally as involved as I have as well. And maybe it'd be more appropriate to ask Councillor Davey, because I know he's been most recently involved in correspondence on this, actually.
Okay. Thank you. Ollie, I'm not sure even if you're there, because I can't see who's present, but if you are you happy to say a few words on this?
Yes, I am here, Paul, yes, and I am happy to speak on this. I'll just explain briefly how I got involved in this. I was contacted actually by Simon Jupp's office, who put me in touch by a somewhat roundabout route with Jill Adamson, who you've just heard from, who was concerned about this rough sleeper. I have been and spoken to him on one occasion, and I also share Jill's concerns. Yeah, unlike Jill, I have some sympathy with the housing team because I have read the report at page 111, and I do understand they are under a lot of pressure. I saw a figure of something like 40 cases each. So I understand that there is a lot of pressure. But one of the first things I discovered when I started looking into this, although nobody would discuss it specifically with me because the person in question, I've got to be a bit careful here, had not given express permission, although I think Paul Miller can perhaps correct me. I think he has given a blanket permission for each of us now to speak on his behalf. Thank you, Paul. But one of the first things I discovered was that there is a policy sort of slightly buried in the housing policy, kind of disentitling those who've been in prison, and they receive no help for 2 years. Now, I don't know the rationale for this, but it seems a bit like it's an element of rationing on the housing stock. And also there's a little bit of an element of the deserving poor creeping into this, which I thought pinged us back to Victorian times. So I would very much like to see that policy reviewed, because without knowing the background and the rationale for that, it seems unnecessarily punitive. By definition, anyone coming out of prison may very well be without a home to go back to. And interestingly enough, it was the Police and Crime Commissioner writing in the Journal this week who talked about the cycle of offending and reoffending and how intervention can help to prevent that taking place. So I feel that without help from this council, that this person is just going to go back into that cycle without some help. So I'd very much like to see that case reviewed, and certainly this policy that refuses to help people with a prison record from receiving any help.
Okay, thank you very much, Ollie, for that. You may be aware, Ms. Adamson, that this is coming up at item 15 on the agenda tonight, the homelessness strategy update.
Yes.
So hopefully there'll be more then. Can I just ask, Megan, Councillor Armstrong, is there anything you'd like to say about this at the moment, or would you just like to hold on until item 15?
Thank you, Paul. No, I wouldn't like to comment on this. It's confidential information. The Housing Department are dealing with it as far as I know. And I'd like to leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much. I think it's important that I speak on behalf of Ms. Adamson of the Housing Department as well. Your point is thoroughly well made and well taken this evening. I'm very glad to hear from you. I know they work incredibly hard and it is very difficult, but we're grateful to you for pointing this out and highlighting it. And I'm sure that'll precipitate some action. And I'll certainly talk with the portfolio holder, with Megan later, and see if we can try and move this along a bit. Thank you very much. Thank you. The second public speaker is Mr. Jeremy Woodward. Is Mr. Woodward there?
Yes, hello.
Thank you, Mr. Woodward. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to ask a couple of questions about transparency and democracy at the District Council. It's been very useful to refer to the Council's press releases over the years, but this has its limitations. Frustratingly, the news archive only provides items from this year, half from last year, and then stops at 2018. What's more, any links to news pages over 2 years old become broken, so there's no longer any access to issues which might still be of importance. I've written several times to the Communications Department about this, but I'm still awaiting a proper answer. I appreciate the resources will be limited, but providing access to archives doesn't take up much space on the server, and besides, this is something central government provides very readily. My point, though, is not so much that this is very frustrating, or that there are indeed several gaps and ease of use issues in the Council's website. This is actually about transparency. Democracy is essentially about making informed decisions, and if there is limited access to information, especially official information, then the democratic process is compromised. So I would like to think then that the default position at the District Council would be to make information readily available and easy to access. And my second point is that this evening we are communicating virtually, something we're quite used to doing by now. And I would like to ask you how these remote meetings by Zoom are working, whether they are enabling greater participation both for the public and members, and whether you will be looking to bring in a hybrid approach permanently, where there will be a choice to physically attend meetings or to attend via video link. Now, there are all sorts of reasons why virtual technologies should be embraced, not least that it facilitates contact between council and public. But it does go much deeper than this. I do appreciate that both members and officers have limited time and resources to respond to questions from each other and from the wider public. However, my own earlier experiences with the District Council showed me that queries were often not treated seriously, and that this was an attitude I felt came from both councillors and staff. Now, my understanding is that the new administration came to power largely due to an exasperation with this attitude, whether over the lack of transparency in compiling the local plan or the deliberate obfuscation over the Knoll relocation project, to name but two key examples. It is clear then that the new administration wants to change the culture embedded at the heart of the district council, a culture created by many decades of reluctance to engage with the public, to be straight with stakeholders, and to provide information where it is needed. The new administration intends to address these fundamental issues around process at the council,
30 seconds,
which I would hope will have a profound and positive effect on the quality of decision-making and delivery of services, which is surely what these changes are all about. And now that the new administration has signalled its determination to move into clear, bright waters with the appointment of a portfolio holder for transparency and democracy, I would like to conclude by asking you what kind of measures you're looking to introduce to bring about greater transparency and democracy at the District Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for those questions, Mr. Woodward. And we have the portfolio holder for democracy and transparency here. Councillor Paul Miller, would you like to address any of those points of Mr. Woodward's?
Yes, I'll be as brief as I can because I know we have a really long agenda, and I hope Mr. Woodward appreciates that. And I'll write to him further on any points I don't cover. He mentioned hybrid meetings. Well, virtual meetings, in my mind, have been really successful, and I want to applaud our democratic services team for their hard work in making that happen. You know, it's a very resource intensive exercise, but it has increased participation from councillors who have work commitment and were therefore unable to attend physical meetings. I also think it's good for the public who live in other parts of East Devon, not necessarily Honiton, to be able to engage in these meetings and to actually watch the proceedings live. So I think that's been a really positive thing. I think we need to wait a while before scoping out hybrid, which I think would be really important. But right now, I think it's difficult to see the light at the end of the tunnel with the pandemic. So the feedback I've received from other councillors is to put that on hold for a while. I do think this new administration are bringing about a positive culture change and will continue to. And I'm very happy to write to Mr. Woodward about the future plans in my portfolio and the council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Miller. Thank you very much, Mr. Woodward, for coming here and speaking tonight. Thank you. If I can now go to one of our officers, Sue Howell, who has a contribution to read out from Sarah Butcher.
Thank you, Chair. Dear councillors, having seen the recent publicity about the government's white paper, I wanted to highlight the plight of wildlife in East Devon before you consider any new planning reforms. I write this as an Exmouth resident, but amongst other things, I'm also chair of Devon Bat Group, a volunteer with Devon Wildlife Trust, and have qualifications in biological recording. I absolutely don't claim to be an expert and know that there will be many more qualified people able to give advice, but I feel really strongly about how rapidly wildlife is already disappearing and how little is being done about it. The relaxation of the existing planning regulations can only make things worse. As everyone knows, we're in the midst of a climate emergency with wildlife under threat more now than it ever has been. Already 1 in 4 UK mammals is threatened by extinction, according to the latest report by the Mammal Society and commissioned by Natural England, NRW Wales and SNH Scotland, along with the Joint National Conservation Committee. There seems, however, to be a missing link in people's understanding about where nature is, thinking it starts elsewhere and not at our own doorstep and our own back garden, and is our shared responsibility. All too often, wildlife is being pushed into increasingly small spaces, not just with the expansion of local housing, but also with the drive for local wildlife corridor. But also with the drive for low maintenance, tidy gardens, hedges kept neat and tidy, and grass in public areas kept short. I saw for myself last year what happens when a local wildlife corridor, as described in the neighbourhood plan, got tidied up at the expense of all the wildlife that had called it home. Only this afternoon I picked up a dead juvenile hedgehog up off the road, just doors up from my house, and on the way home from work, past a beautiful hedge being ripped out to be replaced with a fence. Losing more habitat for nesting birds. I regularly hear neighbours complaining about leaves being stuck on their plastic grass or about trees that might fall down without a thought to those very trees, what they provide for us. There is already such a huge disconnect that we need to work on. Even today, the spaces left to wildlife are being made ever smaller and are increasingly under pressure, not just with more wildlife desperately needing them, but also with people using them for leisure and dog walking as well. A habitat can only support a finite number of creatures before food resources run out, yet still we put our need for housing first and force them into ever smaller areas and possibly suboptimal habitat. We are blessed in Devon to have so much wonderful green space, gorgeous hills, fantastic pasture and beautiful woodland. Many of us have moved here because of this, while much of our economy depends on people wanting to visit. These areas also support some of the rarest bats in the UK. We have 16 of the 17 breeding species of bats in our country. Many of which are... Okay. 3 minutes, Amanda.
Yes.
Do you want another 15, 20 seconds, Sue, to get to the end?
I don't think I'll do it. It'll take another couple of minutes, Chair.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that. Thanks, Sue. And thank you to Sarah Butcher for sending that in. Members, can I just remind you, please, if you can all be on mute, the odd cough and it throws back to you and so forth. Thank you very much.
Chair?
Yes.
May I ask a question? As we didn't sort of hear the end of Sarah's letter, would it be possible that could be forwarded to all of us?
Excellent.
Would that be okay?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for doing that and filling that out. Right, we now go to agenda item 2, the minutes of the previous meeting. And,
Chair,
if anyone has a comment, yes, Councillor Wright, please.
May I just respond briefly to those comments?
Oh,
I'm sure
yes, please do.
a number of us have had a number of emails over the last couple of days regarding concerns about lack of attention to natural and environmental concerns as enshrined in the white paper. Now, one of the reasons that we pulled out.
Oh, I think we've lost Councillor Ragg, have we? Or have I lost the meeting?
I think she's been muted.
Oh, she's muted. Are you back with us, Eileen?
I've unmuted.
Here we go. On you go then. Thank you.
Okay. But one of the things that we do have in East Devon is our local plan, and within that, despite the scant mention in the white paper to, it's build with this government. We have SSSIs, Ramsar sites, AONB, special conservation areas, special protection areas, and nature reserves. So we are keen to protect our natural environment, and that is one of the things at the top of the agenda of this new administration. So I think you can be assured one of the reasons we pulled out of the Greater Exeter Strategic Plan was to protect our natural environment. It was a bold move to make, but we will work with the other district councils and Exeter City Council. But we are keen, we are very jealous of our surroundings, of the wonderful countryside that we live in, not to mention the shoreline. And so it is high on our agenda. And, please, like to offer some reassurance on that. We're not into build here in East Devon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ragg. And in case Sarah Butcher is watching this evening or watching the recording, Councillor Ragg is our Chair of Planning. So that comes with a considerable weight. Talking of considerable weight, Councillor Jeff, that's very unfair. Councillor Jeff Young, you're next to speak, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add, as portfolio holder for Coast, Country and Environment, I'm really proud of what we do in East Devon for wildlife and the countryside. Next week, we start off the consultation with the Cllr Valley Regional Park. Our countryside team have been doing fantastic work in Seaton wetlands. We've got Wild Exmouth that is promoting wildlife corridors in Exmouth. We've got Wild Honiton coming on stream and other exciting issues coming along. We've got the Lower Otter Restoration Project, which is providing more habitat for wildlife. And as my colleague on planning says, 75% of East Devon is in the ANOB. So I think we really do push our weight on countryside issues. But saying that, I'd like to do a lot more. And now I hope this administration will support me in promoting more wildlife corridors and more habitat mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young, and utterly applaud the work you're doing and the officers who support you are doing as well. I'm very glad to hear all of that detail. Thank you again to Sarah Butcher for the question and to Eileen for her contribution. Right, now we move on to agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. If any of you have got a comment, please raise a blue hand. If not, I'll take it as an indication that you all agree to the minutes. I shall now look out for blue hands. Amanda, I can't see any. Are you able to see any?
Let me just have a look, Chair. No, I can't see any either.
Okay, thank you very much. Then the minutes of the previous meeting are agreed. Moving on to agenda item 3, apologies. Are we in receipt of any apologies, Amanda?
I haven't received any, Chair.
I do apologise myself. I had received an apology from Councillor John Loudon. So I should have said that earlier. So if we can include that here, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Agenda item 4 is declarations of interest, which is to be done by a roll conducted by Amanda. To you.
Okay. Councillor Arnott.
None.
Councillor Hayward.
None, thank you.
Councillor Armstrong.
None.
Councillor Bailey.
None.
Councillor Young.
None.
Chair.
Just ward member for Seaton for item 16.
Thank you. Councillor Loudon. Oh, sorry. Excuse for sentence. Apologies. Councillor Miller.
Yes, item 17. I'm the council's appointed director for the Exmouth Queen's Drive Community Interest Company. The council's principal solicitor has advised me that as the council's representative, this is a personal interest, and I do not consider it appropriate. I do not consider that my position biases me or predetermines me. So I've been advised that I can remain, participate, and vote on that item.
Thank you. Councillor Rickson.
None, thank you.
And Councillor Rowland.
None, thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda. Can I just go back on mine, because I realised, courtesy of the absolutely diligent Councillor Ledger, that I'm also a ward member for the north end of Seaton Wetlands. So I'll declare that interest there for agenda item 16 too. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item, late items. There are no late items this evening. Agenda item 6 is confidential or exempt items. There are none that have been advised as recommended to be dealt with in this way by our officers. Agenda item 7 is the forward plan. I just wonder, throwing it very, very quickly, Jess, Councillor Bailey, it's not everybody, I'm mindful of everybody watching this, and not everybody will understand what the forward plan is. I mean, would you be happy just to give like 30 seconds on what it is and you know, how it works?
Well, I think it's probably appropriate for Henry Gordon Lennox to do that.
to explain what the responsibility is with regards to the forward plan? If he's happy to do that, please.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Henry, do you want to just give us sort of potted? You don't have to go through it as a summary, but what the forward plan is its significance for the council.
Shame. I thought this was my moment where I could bore you all to death with the legal niceties.
Do if you wish.
No, I don't think anybody fancies that really. So a forward plan is the legal requirements for the council to publish the key decisions that it intends to take within the next month, so within the next 28 days. Ours goes beyond that, so it covers a 4-month rolling period, but fundamentally any key decision that the Cabinet intends to take must be published on the forward plan. There are provisions in place to deal with urgent decisions that don't comply with that, but if you put it on the forward plan, then you can take the decision in the normal way.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Henry, very much. I always think it's, we must always remember new readers start here, as they say. So thank you for that. So Cabinet, are members happy to note this item? I'd better take it by green ticks for yes and red crosses for no, please, and blue what's it's for abstain. If you could vote now, please.
Okay. You've got 9 green ticks, Chair. You did have 10, but somebody's obviously put their hand down.
Might have been me by mistake. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, those minutes are noted, or sorry, the plan is noted. Moving on to agenda item 8, the minutes of the Housing Company Task and Finish Forum held on the 8th of October 2020. Are members happy to note those minutes? Again, I'm afraid green cross for yes, red tick for no, and blue hand for abstain.
Eight green ticks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item the Strat held on the 22nd of September 2020. Again, if members are happy to note those minutes, could you please green tick for yes, red cross for no, blue hand for abstain.
Eight green ticks, Chair.
Right. Thank you very much indeed for your help on that, Sue. Now we move on to agenda item 11, which is COVID-19 economic response and recovery. And I'd like to invite a report to come from the service leads, Libby Jarrett and Andy Wood. I don't know who is leading on it. Is it Andy Wood to go?
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't sure whether you wanted an introduction or not. As you say, it's a joint report.
I've got, yes. I don't really know. It says a report from Libby and from Andrew. So I'm very happy to take any comments from either of you if you think those would be helpful, or none if you prefer.
I may just give a quick couple of minutes in that case, Chair,
Okay,
if that's okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the report attempts to take stock 7 months after the initial lockdown of where we stand in terms of the impacts on the economy. It's fair to say, I think, that we were fairly early in terms of some of those impacts with Axminster Carpets and Flybe. And the report points to quite a difficult winter in front of us as well, particularly with the end of the furlough period, and potentially unemployment increasing from below 2% through to 10% over the course of a 12-month period. I would hasten to add as well that the report was written prior to the news regarding Oscar Mayer in Chard, which is, I think, over 800 jobs. Clearly, Axminster and the eastern part of the district is within the travel to work area of that as well. So some of those kind of slightly foreboding messages within the report are unfortunately starting to happen. I would just like to highlight 2 particular points. One is around differential impacts. It would be wrong to assume that there's been one uniform impact across the district. I think hopefully it comes through from the report that the impact on people, particularly by age, by income group, by place, and there's a slight differential emerging between the east and the west of the district, as well as by town, and also by sector, highlight tourism, aviation, and also retail and hospitality as sectors, and construction that have been particularly badly affected. But on the flip side, also important to say, I think that there are specific opportunities looking forward. There is a new spirit of cooperation, I think, with the Team Devon approach, which is really important, I think, to garner wider partnership going forward. And also around green recovery and potentially, rather than just a return to business as usual, opportunities around local sourcing, for example, which we can help to push going forward as well. I wasn't sure at that point, Chair, whether Libby wants to come in and talk about all the measures that have been deployed as well.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Andy. Libby, would you like to make some comments as well?
Yes, I'm happy to add. Obviously, in section 2 of the report, it provides a breakdown of the support that we have been able to provide to businesses in the district, and that really gives a flavour of our response, which, in terms of the value and the number of businesses that have benefited from the different measures that were put in place. The hardship funding is something that is ongoing, although it's not necessarily specific for businesses, but it is there to help individuals with funding that is available to help with rebuilding financial resilience, and so as well as addressing immediate essential need. So if we need to support, for instance, the self-employed, people want to set up their own self-employed business, then we could use that fund to help people with sort of startup costs. So
Okay.
That was all I was going to add. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Martin. Can I then go to members of the council outside of the cabinet who would like to speak on this or ask questions first? And I can't see anybody at the moment. Shout if I can. I can. And I'm very glad to hear from him because he's written a very kind email today or yesterday. Today. Councillor Mike Allen, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The report is an excellent report, and I think that all councillors, whatever political persuasion, would support the way in which Andy Wood and Libby Jarrett and others of the officers have been handling so much through this pandemic and managing to get so much money and support through to the people that need it, both in the businesses and in the individual arenas. The interesting thing is that a lot of the recommendations around Team Devon actually were put to Paul Hayward by me as part of the Conservative contribution to the thinking. And I'm very grateful that we can combine on this, that we can cooperate to the best possible level on the things that we are aiming to do to support both the economy and the poor in the East Devon area. This is not something that I think we should end up playing petty politics about. It's not something that we should stay inside our boxes about. What I would particularly point out, and I included it with the email that Councillor Arnott's mentioned, if you look on page 65 of the report in the hardship funding element that Libby Jarrett's just referred to, it mentions about supporting our residents in building financial resilience, which obviously is needed both in business, but certainly in individual homes. And if you look at page 67, you'll see the number of people who have become unemployed and are starting to claim unemployment benefit, universal benefit. And if you look at it, what you'll see is that there is quite a chunk of people in the 50 plus category who are becoming unemployed. It's gone from 210 in September of 2018 to 920 September 2020. It's a huge increase, and it dwarfs the increase that in every other category except the 16 to 24, and it's even higher than them. What I would simply ask is that when you come through with further proposals in November, could you please seriously consider both groups and their individual types of need for counselling? I was very pleased to hear in the Team Devon prospectus that it was something that they were beginning to consider. I urged it of the portfolio holders for economy and county at county level. The 50 plus age group as well as the young age group have different needs and need counselling for different aspects of their future and their reskilling. And I would just urge you, please, to come up with something specific for East Devon, particularly looking at the hardship funding, to see whether or not we can improve the resilience of people who have become unemployed and to improve their financial resilience and counsel them on career opportunities for the future. I do encourage everyone to read both this report and the Team Devon prospectus, and I just want to emphasise how in unity we support this, as all the councillors, I hope, will do so.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Mike. And you're quite right. The Team Devon report comes together from a combination of the districts working with the county in East Devon, and those districts are from all parties and none. That's very, very good contribution. Thank you. Can I go to Councillor Brewster Sarum, please?
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair. What I wanted to look at is points 3.8 and 3.9 of the report. As an Exmouth member, it is of concern to see that Exmouth features on the vulnerability index. So I think my question is probably put to Libby. I've got a couple of quick questions. Firstly, has a more detailed analysis been done to identify exactly what further specific local as opposed to national economic support measures mentioned in point 5.2 of the report can be taken so that, for example, Exmouth can move off this table as suggested by the conclusion of the report, looking at point 8.8, which talks about the opportunity now to be more proactive. I note that the original evidence for the table is provided by data from furlough, national income support programs and government-backed loans. And my second point is that will localities like Exmouth be able to benefit from the support measures identified in point 6.2 of the report, assuming that the Team Devon approach is endorsed by the Cabinet tonight as the best partnership for coordinating economic recovery activity, particularly as is outlined in point 5.1, recovery will be both bumpy and prolonged. So those are my two questions, Chair, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Just putting Libby on the spot there, giving a bit of time. Libby, are you happy to address the points about Exmouth at this stage, or like to sort of write back to Bruce?
If I can come back to Bruce, it's something that probably Andy and I need to work on together on that one.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much for that, for those questions, Councillor Desaru.
Thank you, Leader.
And they are noted. Thank you. Councillor Jack Rowland, please. Oh, sorry, sorry, Jack. I need to just double check there's nobody outside it. There isn't, so it comes within Cabinet now. So first of all, with Jack Rowland, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Allen sort of stole part of my thunder, actually, because the first thing I wanted to actually say was congratulations to the officers, Libby Jarrett and Andy Wood, for this excellent report. And I know from speaking to Libby over the last few months, some of the deadlines that the team has faced in actually getting some of the support in place. Some of the timescales have been very short, and unfailingly, they've met every challenge so far. So they really are to be congratulated on the work that's gone into this. I wholeheartedly support the recommendations that are made in this report, and I seem to recall in part answer to the question that Councillor Desara raised, that an area of Exmouth was also highlighted well a good few months back as part of the health and wellbeing report as well. So I think there were 3 areas in East Devon that were highlighted in that, and they seem to very much correspond with what's coming out in this report as well. So in conclusion, I firmly recommend acceptance of the recommendations that are made in this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowland. Councillor Paul Hayward, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, like the previous speaker, who's stolen a lot of what I was going to say, this is going to be even shorter than it was going to be, obviously. Well, I mean, as members will know, Councillor Allen and I disagree profoundly on some things, but on this, I think we are completely united. This is an issue that goes beyond politics. Whichever party is in power, this is about people. And that's our duty as a council, to support those, especially the 2 groups that have been identified, whose needs are profoundly different and will need targeted action to help them. But as councillors across the board, we must collaborate, cooperate, and do everything we can to support those in need. Because I think the final comment in this report, which again I applaud because it's comprehensive and very, very helpful to members, is that the impact of the pandemic has been profound, and perhaps that's even an understatement. It's been catastrophic, and the omens for the months to come are not much better. And all we can do is adapt and learn and react as we always have, as this previous administration did. You know, it's an unforeseen event, but we'll all work together and we'll get through it. And we'll support those that need to be supported. So I'm more than happy to second Councillor Rowland's proposal to get these recommendations, and look forward to discussing this again in November with some targeted measures for that, using that money wisely and quickly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hayward.
Chair,
yes. Please.
Sorry, Chair. I realised I should have said in opening that there's a need to amend the 3rd recommendation around endorsing the local restriction support grant, if that's possible. The report was the policy was appended to the report, but since that point, the government guidance has evolved further, and therefore it would seem sensible to seek an amendment to that recommendation to delegate authority to the 151 officer in consultation with yourself, Deputy Leader, and the finance portfolio holder to make further amendments to that policy, if that's possible.
How would that 3rd recommendation read now in totality then, Andy?
Okay, so I suggest to approve the proposed local restriction support grant policy for delegated authority to be given to the Council's Section 151 officer in consultation with the Leader, Deputy Leader, and portfolio holder for finance, to make such amendments as might be required in order to take account of changes in government guidance.
I'm glad you said that, not me. Councillor Rowland, are you happy to include that amendment to the recommendation as the proposer?
More than happy, Chair, provided it doesn't, because I'm one of the people mentioned in the delegated power. Is it okay for me to still agree to that recommendation, or should it be
let's look for some is that fine, okay, Henry? Okay,
yes,
right.
Thanks, Henry.
Thank you.
In which case, yes, I'm happy to support that amendment.
Councillor Hayward, are you happy to continue to second that?
Absolutely, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other amendments from committee at all, or anything else you'd like to say before we go to a vote? Nothing. Thank you very much. Okay, can we please then vote by yellow, green tick for yes, red cross for no, blue hand for abstain. Thank you very much.
For the sake of those watching online, the vote is underway. The vote is carried, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Sue. Okay, I'm just going to hair back, if you don't mind, everybody, to agenda item 10, which I don't know whose fault this was, but we skipped over it. The minutes of the Strata Joint Executive Committee held on the 22nd of September 2020. And they are here before us today to note. Would anybody like to say anything about those before we go on to note? Nobody seems to want to do that. So thank you very much. In which case, can we green tick for yes, red cross for no, blue hand for abstain? Thank you.
For those members of the public watching, the vote is underway. The vote is carried, Chair.
Thank you very much, Sue. Right, going back on course on the agenda. Item is we have a report from our engineering projects manager, Mr. Tom Buxton Smith. Over to you, Tom.
Chair, if I may introduce this, I think Tom's on.
Oh, okay.
Just a few words of introduction. As the Cabinet will know, that we're delivering a major engineering scheme to protect something like 1,500 homes in Exmouth from coastal flooding. The scheme's on site at the moment, and the design involves a series of gates because of the proximity of the scheme to the highway. And this report has come forward because we're proposing a change from what we reported back in November 2016, where we envisaged the Environment Agency closing these gates for us. You can see from the report there are 17 gates. 7 will be operated by East Devon District Council, and we're proposing that 10 of the floodgates are operated by volunteers. After the Environment Agency issue a flood alert, we propose using street scene to close the gates on the highway because of the significance of being able to work on the highway, referred to as Chapter 8 trainings required, and then community volunteer groups to close the other gates. And this will be escalated as a safety precaution to East Devon District Council if for any reason that fails to happen. And what we're proposing is that a memorandum of understanding is used, and in that memorandum we'll set out the alert, training requirements, how the gates are opened and closed, and the general process that we envisage should we receive a flood alert. The arrangement described works well elsewhere, so we think it's realistic and achievable. And Tom, our engineer, is on the call and will help with any questions should that be necessary. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Golding, John Golding, that was. Okay, I'll first invite non-members to speak by raising your virtual blue hand. And I can see Councillor Brewster Sarum, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of the Exmouth Flooding Land Drainage Working Party. We are pleased to welcome this third-party member of understanding as set out in today's agenda, which will be presented to the Town Council at its next meeting, following on from tonight's decision. I think the key points in the report is that the closed gates can give a sense of local ownership, empowerment and social cohesion. Community volunteers will develop skills and social infrastructure that they may also contribute to Exmouth Town Council's community emergency plan. So I think in that sense, it'll be a win-win for all parties involved. And hopefully it's going to receive Cabinet approval tonight and be a great success for the local community, which is something that this council is clearly striving to achieve, as we've already heard earlier this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor De Sarum. Councillor Eileen Ragg, please.
Sorry, I'm having a problem with this. May I suggest, Chair, that we perhaps leaflet the properties at Alexandra Terrace, at Morton Crescent, which are directly affected by the potential ingress of the sea. And we ask for volunteers because they're on the spot. They may well have residents associations. They used to have a couple, but people move on. But there again, there are people there. Well, they're not there actually because they're second homes, or else they're landlords letting out. So I think primarily, maybe if we leaflet those properties and ask if there are any volunteers prepared to come forward. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Ragg. I'm sure Mr. Golding has noted that suggestion. Councillor Steve Gazzard, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to echo what Councillor Bruce Desaram said, and I would support what Councillor Eileen Ragg has just said, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gazzard. Can I just commend to all councillors the example that Councillor Gazzard has just shown you, and I'm very grateful to him for his brevity. Right, is there anybody else from outside Cabinet who would like to speak? If not, speak now. If not, forever hold your peace. We come back into Cabinet. Anybody else like to make a comment? If not, can I have Councillor Jeff Young, please?
Thank you, Chair. This type of scheme with getting resilience volunteers to work on the gates has worked in other places in Devon. I've been involved in some of those and they work very well. And this would be very welcome for the residents of Exmouth to be more protected from the storms and rising sea levels. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young. Councillor Paul Hayward, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I'll be very brief. I'm delighted to be able to support this and will be doing so. And I think it's an incredible achievement from the work that's being done that to protect potentially 1,500 homes from flooding over the 100-year life of this project, when all of us will no longer be around. You're looking at a cost of less than £7.50 per day to protect that number of houses, and it's just fantastic. Fantastic that the community is stepping up. Fantastic that East Devon can play its part, and I quite understand why this is being done, because the Environment Agency will have to travel. They have their own cuts. They're subject to quite draconian cuts from higher up, and so this is a realistic and pragmatic solution to an ever-increasing problem, and I hope that this will, well, I have every certainty this will work very well in the future. So happy to support. Thank you.
Happy to support. So proposing. Can I have a seconder, please, for Councillor Hayward's proposal of support? Councillor Dan Ledger. I think he's either seconding or wishing to speak.
No, happy to.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ledger. Thank you very much. In which case, can we please yellow? Oh, I keep saying yellow. Green tick for yes, red cross for no, blue hand for abstain, please. And off we go.
For those watching the meeting online, the vote is underway. The vote's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. And Sue. So we now come to agenda item 13, complaints to the Ombudsman during 2019 and 20. And we have a brief report here from our monitoring officer, Mr. Henry Gordon-Lennox.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll take the cue of keeping it short. So the report is pretty self-explanatory. We do this every year, reporting on what the LGO has considered in terms of decisions against the council, or sorry, appeals from council complaint process, effectively. It's there. I'm happy to take any questions there may be.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gordon-Lennox. Members from outside of Cabinet, are there any questions you would like to make, like to put? Nothing from outside Cabinet at this stage that I can see. So I'll bring it inside Cabinet and begin with Councillor Paul Miller, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to thank the monitoring officer for the report. I think the key point in the report is 5.1, forgive me, where it says the important thing is that the council continuously learns from and improves as a result of the complaints received, and I see the council doing that all the time. And I think as well, as the Ombudsman points out in his letter, considering volumes of complaints alone is not an effective measure of the quality of services being provided by the council. I think that's entirely true as well, and it would be unfair to compare our level of complaints with any other council. It's quite a blunt measure. But yeah, I just would like to propose that the report is noted. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Miller. Would anybody else like to speak on that? Okay, in which case we have Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was simply going to second the Councillor Miller's proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland, for assisting my cause. In which case we have a proposer and a seconder. Can we now go to the vote? Green tick for yes, red cross for no, blue hand for abstain. Thank you.
For those watching online, the vote is underway and the vote is carried, Chair.
Thank you very much, Sue. Moving on to agenda item 14, the response to the Farringdon Neighbourhood Plan submission. The purpose of the report is to formally agree the response by this council to the submission consultation for the Farringdon Neighbourhood Plan. We have two recommendations: that members note the formal submission of the Farringdon Neighbourhood Plan and congratulate the producers of the plan on their dedicated hard work and commitment in producing the document, and two, that this council make the proposed representation set out at paragraph 1.19 in this report in response to this consultation. And would anybody from outside Cabinet like to speak on that? Doesn't look as if anybody else would, in which case, coming back into Cabinet, Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just to echo that, I'd like to congratulate Farringdon on producing their neighbourhood plan, and also reassure them, in case they needed any reassurance, that although we are in the process of producing a new local plan, it would obviously take into account anything that's included within that neighbourhood plan. So I'd like to formally move acceptance of the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowland. Is there a seconder, please, for that? Just shout out if there is.
Happy to, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ledger. We have a proposer and a seconder, in which case we'll go to a vote. Green tick for yes, red cross for no, blue hand for abstain.
For those watching online, the vote is underway and the vote is carried, Chair.
Thank you very much, Sue. Moving on to item 15, the homelessness strategy update. And we have a report here from our Housing Solutions Manager, Mr. Andrew Mitchell. Over to you, please, Andrew.
Yes, Chair. So
Chair,
we originally asked. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Andrew. Somebody's shouting there.
Yeah.
No, I don't know who that was. Okay, Andrew, if you can carry on, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. So we originally asked to provide a homelessness update for November's Cabinet meeting, but we brought it forward to include staffing recommendations, which were written, made sense to merge the reports. So first of all, homelessness strategy update. This is a live document which constantly evolves for an action plan where specific actions are set and monitored. This allows the strategy to remain, keep relevance, capture up-to-date issues and challenges, and factor in unknown elements that come along, for example, COVID. The plan was drawn up through consultation with and is monitored by the Homeless Strategy Review Panel, which meets every 2 months. Included in this panel are portfolio holder and 2 former service users. So it's especially useful to consult with people with lived experience, and their opinions and feedback really shape the way we work, and we value their input. So that's an update on homeless strategy, and we've got a report of last year's plan included in the papers. Secondly, the homelessness levels in the district as an update. As with most aspects at the moment, COVID's pretty much thrown everything in the air. It's had a real impact on homelessness levels in the district. The figures, we've included a lot of figures in the report, and the main impact of COVID is a huge increase in the demand for temporary accommodation, people in homeless situations who need help, and we've had to accommodate. So we've to accommodate over 100 households since lockdown was introduced. And we're seeing homeless on the day presentations pretty much every working day, sometimes multiple in one day. So that's the situation at the moment. This has contributed to an increase in expenditure on temporary accommodation, and in particular spot purchase accommodation, like B&B, holiday lets. And positive factors, we have been helped by the availability of the HMO. So the HMO we purchased last year with right to buy money, specifically for accommodating people in homeless situations. That became available to occupy in February, which proved to be really timely. It's kept the B&B spend much lower than it would otherwise have been. Also, the repurposing of Sailors Rest flats in Exmouth has been really useful. We can now use that as move-on accommodation, and they've been available for the last couple of months as well. So that's been really helpful. Other measures are listed in the report of what we've done to sort of lessen the impact of COVID, including homeless cell meetings with other local authorities to keep consistency and share good practice, daily briefings with the team, the use of the rent deposit and bond scheme, and also homelessness features highly in our recovery plan. So looking at the current situation, there's a lot of ongoing pressure on the homeless options team at the moment. They've reacted really positively to the challenges for a really demanding period, but we do expect things just to get worse, really. There's a second wave of homelessness expected. Looking at affordability issues, there's going to be a rise in evictions. People are losing jobs. People are having their hours cut, so people will be unable to afford rent and mortgage. There's also the lifting of restrictions on private landlords being able to evict. So we do expect things to rise in the near future. And this brings us on to the staffing recommendations. So the best measure to tackle homelessness is to make sure we're adequately resourced, and we need to prevent and relieve homelessness wherever possible. Currently, our housing officers, as I say in the report, have caseloads of over 40, and this is just too high. So we can't realistically achieve what we want to achieve with the current demand levels and the expected second wave, and attached to economic fallout from COVID. So homelessness, as I say, will only rise. So we need to be adequately resourced, and this is what we need to address. So in the report, we list the positions covered by external funding from the MHCLG. Some we bid for and some we receive a grant for. But it is worth noting as well in this request for additional, continuation and additional staff, since the Reduction Act was implemented, which basically changed the whole of the landscape, we've only added one position using money from the general fund. That was a fixed term post that is due to expire in March. So the first request is to make this position secure and permanent. It's proven that we've needed the post, and as I said, things will only get harder. So the costs are detailed in the report, and this will be more of a continuation of resources that we've got available. The second request is to make a part-time post that's become available as a vacancy for part-time post. We'd like to make it into a full-time post by adding an extra 16 hours. Again, the costs are included in the report, and we feel that these measures would really give us a lot of help in being able to tackle homelessness. So recommendations are, first of all, to note the updates provided in relation to the Council's homelessness strategy and the current levels of homelessness, and secondly, to agree the requested amendments to staffing levels. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Andrew. If I can come to members outside of the Cabinet to speak first.
Sorry, Chairman,
yes.
Could I just declare a personal interest in this,
yes,
please?
Please do.
And I'll take no part in any debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Please clear why.
Yes, because a relative, I'm not sure whether they're homeless or not, but they are accommodated in one of the properties that have been purchased by STEM.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Ragg. So coming to members outside of the Council, if I can just remind you, please, to be, all of the blue hands have disappeared. So if you'd like to stick them back up, that would be good. Or they're appearing again now. But yeah, if I can encourage relative brevity, I'd be very grateful. Councillor Steve Gazzard, please. While how are you doing there, Steve? We can't hear you at the moment.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
Got you now, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be brief, Chair. I hope that Cabinet will endorse the recommendations tonight, because it's quite clear that the extra staff are required from what we can see that's going on in our various towns and places. And with regard to the government on the eviction orders that are obviously going to go ahead now, is it possible that the council can write to all our MPs and to the Housing Minister, asking that the government again look at this and put a block on evictions, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Look, can I have it to have their thinking caps on for the next few minutes in relation to what Steve has just said. Councillor Mike Allen, please.
Thank you, Chair. On page 113 is a very devastating evidence of the increase in homelessness cases that we have to deal with. I think if anybody's ever looked into the eyes of a family who are being made homeless by a landlord or forced out for whatever reason, it's devastating and the pain is awful. And as far as this council is concerned, I think we've all voted to make sure that this homelessness policy is as active and supported as much as possible. I don't know of any situation that we're in that is worse than losing your home and being forced onto the street. And so the difficulty is trying to find a suitable accommodation, not in the short term only, because B&Bs obviously aren't suitable for families, but for the longer term. And I do encourage the council particularly to develop more resources in the affordable housing and social housing sectors, because this situation is going to get worse. I completely understand Steve Gazzard's point about trying to stop more evictions in this time, which would be a very good thing to do. But the problem's not going to go away. The problem is going to get worse. And so we are uniquely in a position to be able to spend council resources on buying properties for people who need them. And I just encourage you to do that. And I encourage you, please, to give the team the resources that they need, because every time I've referred people to them, they have been outstanding. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Allen. Are there any other speakers from outside of Cabinet, please? If not, I'll come in and go first to Councillor Paul Miller.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this report. As one of the East Devon residents raised earlier, there are many homeless people who suffer from mental health problems. And this increases the complexity of many cases between our residents and the housing officers. So this new full-time post is much needed. And the recent decision to appoint a mental health officer within the housing service will also help. Just to conclude, the ban on evictions are going to make this winter much more difficult than it needs to be. And I think that Councillor Gazzard's suggestion, which I think was backed up by Councillor Allen, to write to the Minister through Megan as our portfolio holder to ask the government to change their minds on this, I think would be a brilliant idea. It's going to have an awful effect, this lifting of the ban on evictions, because this pandemic is not going away quickly. So I just wanted to back that up, and I don't know how we can weave that into our recommendations, but I would just like to outline my support for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Miller. Councillor Jack Rowland, please. Jack, are you there? Not receiving, over.
I thought I had unmuted myself. I knew I'd make that mistake once tonight. Yes, thank you, Chair. I also welcome the detail that's within this report and the recommendations. My concern is that this situation is going to worsen in view of what's happening generally, in view of the pandemic and people losing their employment. So I'd actually like to add 2 further recommendations in, if that's okay. One is to follow up on Councillor Gazzard's excellent suggestion about that we should be writing to our MPs to lobby for the current restrictions on eviction to remain for the foreseeable future. And a 4th item, having heard what a member of the public said earlier, and also what Councillor Davies subsequently said, I'd like to add a 4th one in, that we review our policy in connection with people that are being released from prison. Whether that is sufficient to cover what I intend on that, I'll let others decide, but that's a 4th one that I'd like to add into the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rowland. Councillor Marianne Rickson, please.
I would like to second the proposals by Councillor Rowland. I think they're very good suggestions. I'm also deeply worried by the impact that the rise in demand for accommodation, how it's gone up so much in just 2 or 3 years, and that this can only get worse. And I'm just appalled that the ban on evictions is happening, is going to be lifted just when we're going into the winter months, which is the worst possible time if you're ever going to do this at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marianne. Councillor Megan Armstrong, please.
Oh, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I was just going to very briefly just say I fully support and endorse the 2 recommendations. So I endorse the first of the recommendations that have been added on by Councillor Rowland. I'm just concerned I would need to take, I think we all need to take advice on the review of the policy about people being released from prison, because I'm not sure of that myself. I think we need to be exactly sure what the policy is now and whether it needs to be reviewed, first of all. And because there's no point, in my view, putting in a recommendation like that if actually nothing needs to be done about it. I don't know whether Henry or John need to comment on that now, or whether that's something we can look at later. I'm not quite sure what the process is for this. I'm just a bit anxious about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Can I suggest, Megan, can we just ask just for a comment from Andrew Mitchell, if you're still there, Andrew, just what does that suggest to you, this potential reviewing about the people released from prison? Have you got anything you can help us with there?
Well, there is no policy against accommodating people who are released from prison. In fact, we have accommodated people who are released from prison. I think the difficulty in the case that was brought up earlier on is, as it's an ongoing case, it's really difficult to speak about it, especially publicly, and I don't think it's really appropriate. So I think that aspect has been brought in. I don't know, it's a misunderstanding from somewhere about what's happening in one particular case with a lot of factors that we can't disclose, but there is no ban on accommodating people who are released from prison. We work closely with the prison services and we work with to actively accommodate people and assist people when they're discharged from prison, amongst other offenders. So it's not really as it was portrayed at the start of the meeting. But again, it's difficult because without saying too much about an individual case, which is not.
No, absolutely. Wasn't asking you to do that. Just wondered if there was a specific policy at the moment that in general might want reviewing. My view would be the same as Megan's on this, that actually that's not an appropriate recommendation now. It might be something we can learn about in the future, and that would be useful. Megan, coming back to you, please, then.
Yeah, thank you. That I appreciate that, because I think we just don't want to be seen to be doing something that's inappropriate, really. And Andrew's just answered the question, I think. So yeah, I would just like to then just rehearse what I said before, that I just really do fully support the 3 recommendations now. And you know, we really do need these staff. They do work very hard, and I know I say that all the time, but I just keep saying it because it's true. I know how hard they work and what difficult situations they have to deal with. So yes, I would fully support these recommendations. Thank you, particularly the first 2.
Thank you very much, Megan. In which case, just coming back to Jack Rowland, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Having heard what Andrew Mitchell said, I'm quite happy to withdraw the review that I mentioned as a 4th item. Okay. Just for clarification.
Thank you very much. Jack, would you like therefore to propose the first 2 that we have, along with a 3rd one, which is that we write to our MPs to lobby against the current eviction, so that we lobby against the removal. Actually, what's the wording? I've written it down. Can you remember?
Did somebody write it down from what I said earlier?
Henry, you've got it. Go on.
Henry, can you help us out with what I actually said then?
Right to the MPs for the current restraints on evictions to remain for the foreseeable future.
Sorry, they're not current. Sorry to come in here. They've actually been lifted already. So we need to get the wording right, I think.
Well, I don't suppose it matters whether they're current or not if you just remove the word current. For restrictions on evictions oh, it does, doesn't it? Well, for restrictions on evictions to be in place for the foreseeable future.
That seems to do it. You can see my difficulty. A, I couldn't read my writing, and B, there are implicit double negatives all the way through that. So good. Okay, I think we understand those recommendations, Cabinet. Coming to Councillor Dan Ledger.
Thank you, Leader. I'm just looking through the priorities, and priority 2 is increasing on accommodation options. Now, I know that the officers do a fantastic job through the HRA in trying to improve our actually offerings with temporary accommodation, but we do have our arms tied behind our backs with the right to buy, and it's whether to add to that further recommendation to lobby the MPs to repeal the right to buy as well, because we're not going to make serious inroads in this area with right to buy in place when we can't significantly increase our offering with that in place.
It doesn't seem any harm to me in, and I see a blue hand from Councillor Megan Armstrong, whose favourite subject is this. Come on, get over to you then, Megan, please.
Yeah, I know people will be sick of hearing me say this, but we actually next Tuesday we have a housing portfolio team meeting at which exactly these sort of things I'm hoping will be discussed in full, you know, so that we can all say from all parties what we feel about the various issues in housing that we're having to face, many of which are in restrictions in place because of government policy. So I really feel that we have to just look at it. I know some people might think I'm slow and I take my time to do things, but I like to do things in order and I like to do them strategically. So I really would like to have that discussion. And I can see Paul Hayward smiling. I don't know whether I just like
100% behind you, Councillor Armstrong.
I'd just like to do it at that meeting. I'd like to start the ball rolling at that meeting. It's only next Tuesday when we're having that first portfolio meeting. And then we'll take it forward from there, rather than just sort of add it on like an add-on to this debate now. I don't know what others, I might be wrong. Other people might have different views on that, but that's my own view of it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Megan. In fact, I mean, just for information, you had written, hadn't you, a couple of months ago along those lines, and what response did you get? Did you get a response from the
that was about the government extending it. They offered to extend the period in which we could use our right to buy receipts for a further 6 months, which took us up until the end of December. We asked for it to be longer, actually, for at least another year or so longer. And they just wrote back and said, no, they were reviewing it, but, you know, don't hold your breath, basically. So that was the answer to that. Otherwise, I would have, you know, so there is a way that we can actually follow that up and just press even more. But I think it'll probably take more than just writing letters personally. I think we have to do more than that. We have to work with other organisations, other housing bodies, housing associations and so on, and you know, make a big thing of this. You know, I think just one local authority on its own probably isn't going to cut it, really. You know, we've got to campaign together on this, and only members can do that. We can't ask officers to do that. So
okay, thank you, Megan. Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Ledger just reminded me as well that many of us have stood on an election campaign of providing more social housing. But one of the things that's occurred to me recently, and having seen it in other areas, I think Cornwall are providing these pods that can be put up in council-owned land that can actually help on the homelessness front. Now, I don't know whether we add that into this recommendation here to explore the possibility of looking into that from a financial cost point of view, or whether that could be covered through Megan's meeting that she's having next week.
Yeah, I'd suggest let's go through, if it's okay with Cabinet, and thank you for that suggestion, Councillor Ledger. Let's go through Megan's committee first, and then we can react fast to that. Certainly something as complex as the pod idea, you know, would be subject of a further report, I think. So if that's agreeable to Cabinet, we have the first two recommendations and the third one that Henry has read out about writing in connection with the eviction issue. Can I ask you, please, green ticks for yes, red crosses for no.
Those watching online, the vote is underway and the vote is carried, Chair.
Thank you very much, Sue, and thank you very much especially to Andrew Mitchell for coming and giving us that report tonight, and all good fortune with appointing these the new officer and with the extended hours for the other one. I look forward to hearing about all the progress there. Thank you. Right, coming now to agenda item 16, which is the Seaton Jurassic Centre Phase 2 and Seaton Wetlands Link project. And I'm very glad to welcome the project manager for Place Assets and Commercialisation, Alison Haywood, to talk about that to us now. Thank you, Alison.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this project is one of a number that was identified in the Seaton Wetlands Link project that was reported to Cabinet in January this year. And this particular project sets out proposals for a new landscaping and interpretation project on the theme of wildlife, nature and climate change, and would form a second phase to Seaton Jurassic. It would be led by Devon Wildlife Trust, the tenant of Seaton Jurassic, but working very closely in partnership with the Council's Countryside Services team and others. So part of the new development of this project would be within a new space for Seaton Jurassic and new external space that would be part of their pay-to-enter offer. But part of it would be free to access for the public directly from the existing car park on the site. And the concept of using this land in this way was developed from the original planning permission that was granted in 2013. But was not delivered at the time that the centre was built due to funding restrictions. So the council is being asked to support this project by offering its land at nil value, and Devon Wildlife Trust would then be raising the funds externally to deliver the project infrastructure. and Devon Wildlife Trust are submitting a funding application at the end of this month. Members are asked to consider if they want to replace some or all of 18 car parking spaces that will be lost as a result of the land transfer to Devon Wildlife Trust to deliver the project. And an illustration is provided at Appendix 5 of the report showing where those spaces could go. The report also recommends that we consider a couple of other small interventions from the Seaton Wetlands Link project, projects 2 and 3, which would enable access into and out of Sheep's Marsh. And that would be by acquiring small parcels of land. So we're seeking authority to be able to open up negotiations with the landowner in respect of those as part of this report as well. So the recommendations, there's a series of recommendations that relate to the land, to entering into agreements with Devon Wildlife Trust and supporting their funding application. A note about a recommendation in relation to the car parking spaces and seeking an instruction on those. And then authority to negotiate in relation to those other 2 parcels of land around Sheep's Marsh for creating what would then become part of a circular link all the way up to Seaton Wetlands. So I think that's a brief summary of the report. Hopefully that's useful for members, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
That's lovely. Thank you very much for that, Alison. Can I come to Councillor Marcus Hartnell, please, to speak first?
Thank you, Chair. Very much in support of this project, not just because of the phase 2 enhancements to Seaton Jurassic, but because it will finally deliver a more direct and improved access to Seaton Wetlands from the town centre. I am concerned that we're going to be losing parking spaces and of course the revenue that's generated from them. However, I cannot support creating replacement parking spaces on the existing picnic site, as I feel this strip of land is important and integral to the link that we're trying to create to the wetlands. And having cars parked adjacent, even on Grasscrete, I think is at odds with the wider objective. I would suggest maybe other options where we could look at keeping the overspill car park open for longer hours, maybe weekends throughout the whole year, which may generate additional income, even during the low season, which may mitigate some of the income that we potentially lose. So I would therefore request that when Cabinet consider the recommendations and they get to recommendation 5, that they take on board the comments that I've made and look to not replace the parking spaces on the grass area and consider alternatives for funding the shortfall that we're going to have for parking income. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Hartnell, and we'll make sure that that point is addressed. Councillor Helen Parr, please.
Thank you. And I endorse what Councillor Hartnell said. This is a really important project to extend the garden, and as it says at point 3 of the recommendation, to get an access into the marshes. This will provide a fantastic offer because people at the moment don't have the link through from the Discovery Centre, and the vision for Seaton has always been this this wonderful wetlands linking into the Discovery Centre, and hopefully at some stage it's going to go right through into Collie Ford. The link, if it can be acquired, will be transforming, I think. It's all part of the vision for Seaton, this green tourism, and I hope Cabinet will support it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Parr. just looking for any other contributions from outside Cabinet. None at the moment. Coming into Cabinet, Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to totally endorse what's already been said, so I won't repeat any of it. But I was actually going to propose some changes to the recommendations as follows: to delete number 5 altogether, but replace it with the following: the overflow car park in the underfleet to be open all year round on the same opening and closing times as the main underfleet car park. That the income from both car parks is monitored over the course of the period post actual loss of the 18 spaces, and to report back on the actual income received to evaluate whether additional car park spaces still need to be provided to replace the lost spaces.
Thank you, Jack. Do you feel that that addresses Councillor Hartnell's concerns to an extent?
Well, yeah, I totally agree that I do not wish to see the picnic area with grass concrete at all. So I totally endorse that, which is why I'm saying that if we delete 5 altogether at this stage, but at least with what I'm saying is we can evaluate to see exactly whether there is an actual income loss, which could be offset by opening the overspill car park all year round, and apart from the limited period it's open at the moment. But it gives us the benefit of being able to also come back at a later date to see exactly whether there has been a loss of income or not.
Okay. Can I just ask for comments on that from Alison Hayward? Just you'll have heard that, Alison. Do you think that's okay for you? Can you make that work at the moment? The new recommendation 5.
Yes, certainly. Working with car parks team, they would be able to monitor that income. I'm not sure whether there may be any kind of restriction on the opening times of that car park that we might need to look at, going back to the original planning permission for that. I don't think there were in terms of seasonality. I think it's just that we always referred to it as the overspill car park, with the idea that it was open in the sort of spring and summer seasons. So that would be the only issue to maybe check on.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Alison. Very valuable. Councillor Dan Ledger, please.
Thank you, Chair. Keep it really brief. I agree with my other 2 ward members, and I'm happy to second Councillor Rowland's proposal.
Okay, thank you. Dan. Councillor Paul Hayward, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor just beat me to it. My own personal view echoes theirs. I wouldn't wish to see any additional parking spaces along that green strip. It would totally ruin what we're trying to achieve. I'm delighted that we're making progress on the Sheep's March access to get more people into the wetlands. It's an incredible area, and the more people that get to it, the better. I think in terms of the amendment that Councillor Rowland has made, it's to be applauded. Happy to support that. And actually, the enhanced offering at Seaton Jurassic, I think, will bring more people in. So we'll have more people parking in the car park. And actually, if we were to open the overspill car park all year round, that will actually decrease, I would feel, our maintenance costs, because the parking keeps down the grass from growing. It keeps down the costs of maintaining it. So really, that's just a win-win. And I think over a period of time, we'd see some balancing out. And I would hope that after a sufficient period that you can make comparisons, actually we'd be no worse off, but we'd have delivered a far better amenity for Seaton and the Jurassic Coast. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Can I just invite a comment from Mr. John Golding, please, the service lead?
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that in order to achieve the revised recommendation 5, we do need to check the planning permission, as I think Alison just mentioned, and we'd need to make a change to the parking places order. So we'll explore that if that's a recommendation that's agreed by members. Thank you.
Because it is a recommendation, so it's possible to, there's time to explore that afterwards. Thank you very much, everybody. Now, the question is, did anybody manage to write down Councillor Rowland's quite lengthy, number 5. Henry, did you get it, or do we need?
No, I have emailed Jack whether he had it ready to hand to ping it through to me to make it look like I had, but I'm afraid I didn't.
Yes,
yeah,
no.
You'll have to be...
Jack, then, if you could email that through, but could you please give it to us?
Fortunately, I did write it down.
Good.
So I can email it separately. Do you want me to read it out again?
Yes, please.
So that 5, as it stands, is removed altogether and is replaced with the overflow car park in the underfleet to be open all year round on the same opening and closing times as the main underfleet car park. That the income from both car parks is monitored over the course of the period post actual loss of the 18 spaces, and to report back on the actual income received to evaluate whether additional car park spaces may be needed to provide, need to be provided to replace the lost spaces.
It's all so simple when you hear it for the second time. Thank you, Jack. I've got that. Cabinet, I hope you have as well. Is anybody worried that they may be voting on something that they don't actually understand? Do please say, or if you're happy with that, in which case, thank you, Cabinet. Can we go to a vote on that? Green tick for yes, red cross for no, blue hand for abstain.
For those watching online, the vote is underway and the vote is carried, Chair.
Thank you very much, Sue, indeed. In which case we go to the next agenda item, which is 17, the side shore in Exmouth. And I'm looking to see here who we have speaking on that. Yes, we have another report actually from Alison Haywood on that, please. So this is agenda item 17, side shore Exmouth Community Interest Company. Alison, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll keep this fairly brief. This report relates to Sideshore, the new water sports centre in Exmouth, which will be run by a community interest company. And the council is a member of that community interest company. And the council is being asked to sign the members agreement that's attached to this report, which relates to a Companies Act audit exemption. It's also noted that there may be other similar documents in the future that the council is asked to sign, and these are very much reports that relate to documents that the KIC has to submit to Companies House. So the recommendation is simply to authorise the signing of the members agreement that's attached, but also giving delegated authority to the portfolio holder for economy and assets for authorising entering into any other similar documents in the future. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Alison. Would anybody from outside of Cabinet like to speak on this? Nobody at the moment. Coming back into Cabinet, I think, with an interest as well. Councillor Paul Miller.
Thank you, Chair. As one of the directors of the Exmouth Queen's Drive Community Interest Company, which I declared at the beginning of the meeting, happily, this project, for the time I've been on the board, is developing to what I believe to be the mutual benefit of everybody, which includes the council and the people of Exmouth. It's been a real honour to carry out the role. I hope all Cabinet will join me in publicly offering an enormous thank you to the officer who has led on this project, Alison Haywood, who's done a terrific job in the face of all the internal and external challenges a project like this would bring, and the pandemic, which has delayed the opening of the Water Sports Centre. After the May elections last year, Alison helped Councillor Hawkins and I to familiarise ourselves with the project from the earliest stage. I must admit that it took me a while to fully get up to speed, but I really get it now. Councillor Hawkins and I are both of a similar-ish age, he with an accountancy professional background, with mine in research. We have worked extremely well together, and I feel we've put the community interest into the company, in that we've acted as a liaison between the council and Grenadier, for example, on the issue of the car park at the Water Sports Centre and making that public, which is what we plan to do. We also complement one another in that he knows about reading accounts and I certainly don't, and I know a bit more about Exmouth, having lived here for most of my life. So I really hope that Cabinet approves the signing of this member agreement. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miller, and your kind comments to Alison Haywood are noted. implemented. Thank you for that, and well merited. Councillor Paul Haywood, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very, very brief. Regarding recommendation 2, which grants delegated authority to the portfolio holder for economy and assets, currently myself, to authorise entry into legal, financial, other documentation on behalf of the council as a shareholder of the KIC. It's just to reassure Cabinet and Council and members of Council that I obviously will liaise with the officers on this. And if anything comes across my desk that causes me concern, or I believe might cause Cabinet or Council concern, it will be reported back to you all. So again, echo everything that Councillor Miller has said. The sideshore should be and will be a fantastic facility for the people of Exmouth and all the visitors. And we look forward in happier times, you know, post-COVID times, to it being inundated and providing thousands of hours of joy for those using it. So yeah, thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Haywood, and I enjoyed a very attractive photograph of you and I think Councillor Jeff Pratt in high-vis jackets down there not so long ago. So good to see you on site despite the challenges of the pandemic. Cabinet, we have those 2 recommendations. Can I ask you to vote on those, please? Green tick for yes, red cross for no, blue hand for abstain. Thank you.
For those watching online, the vote is underway and the vote is carried, Chair.
Thank you very much, Sue, and thank you very much again, Alison. We go on now to agenda item 18, which is Honiton Swimming Pool. Options for the refurbishment and internal alterations of the reception, changing and other associated areas. And we have a report here from the interim principal surveyor, Steve Pratton. Over to you, please, Steve.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. Honiton Swimming Pool at the moment is in very poor state. We've got a water ingress in the reception area. We've got various viewing areas that's having an effect on both the walls and the floors. It's quite a significant structural issue as well. We need to sort that out. There's various opportunities that we've looked at. The fundamental one is to take all the existing screed up, including all the tiles, and to relay it with a DPM underneath to prevent the water coming back in. We have cheaper options that we've prepared, but to be honest, I don't think they're man enough, and basically it would be a short-term solution. We also think that by repairing the floors, there's an opportunity to upgrade the rest of the finishes to the swimming pool, which, to be honest, are extremely dated and tired. And I would suggest that most of those finishes date back to the 1980s when the building was, or this part of the building, the extension, was first built. We've looked at, as I say, various options. And the rear of the document also identifying 4 particular ways that we could go. The preferred option, or the recommendation, is option 2, which is a value engineered design and gives a full damp prevention measure being incorporated, together with a 10-year warranty being provided by the specialist contractor. There are other options that we could do. We could use some of the existing fixtures and finishes, but then the saving would be only a nominal £20,000. I put down there also an option 4, which is an option to actually do nothing. And to be honest, that would not be very good. I don't believe the LED would accept it or be very happy with it. As I say, we do desperately need to do something.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. So you're looking at option 2 really as the preferred option from your point of view. Can I ask you, treat me like an idiot, what is a
Chair.
value engineered design? What does, so when you're looking at value engineered design, what does the word value mean? Yeah.
Okay, so originally we had a pre-tender estimate for a design that came through at £430,000. We then insisted that the specification, the works were looked at again to reduce that cost, and we managed to bring down that figure by some £70,000. So in that sense, the original design was value engineered in terms of cost. However, that value engineering exercise didn't allow for the proper damp prevention measures. It didn't provide a warranty. It was, in essence, it was just cloaking over the problem. So we went back, we got another specialist onto site to look at it. They did some intrusive survey work, and they've come back with a slightly different solution, which, although slightly more expensive than the value engineered option, does give you a 10-year warranty.
Thank you very much, Steve. Can I come now to Councillor Mike Allen, who of course is a councillor in Honiton?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to make a plea on behalf of the people of Honiton. At present, what you can do is you can go into what I think is an unsafe environment and you can swim, but you can only do so if you turn up in your swimming gear, because the situation is that you're not able to change in private. If you do change, in the past, it was in a common area for women and a common area for men, and everybody got changed in public, and there were no cubicles. It just isn't up to modern standards. And I have constant complaints from people who use the swimming pool about the dated environment and the dangerous environment that you go into, because it's very slippery, and it's not just water ingress that's the only problem there. And if these things are not corrected, then we could face legal action for accidents. So I do recommend that we do it properly, and we do it fast, please.
Thank you very much, Mike. Well, Cabinet, we now have the spectacle of Councillor Allen running through the streets in his Speedos, trying to get home with a tail wrap round him. So I think we obviously, that's not going to help him. So we obviously need to do something about this if there are no changing rooms. Can I come back into Cabinet? Councillor Marianne Rickson, please.
I don't want to prejudice decisions on the basis of that picture, which I get worried about.
You know, sometimes you've got to play the horror card. Okay, Councillor Marianne Rickson, please.
Well, being married to someone who, for years, built civic swimming pools, I would just like to ask a question about whether you've actually tested to find out whether the sump or inlet pipes are leaking, because that might be the source of the leak here. You can test it by using a dye, which would then indicate where the pool is actually leaking. Also, whether you've considered using gunite or shotcrete to tank out the pool, which would then make it very leak-proof in the future.
Okay, can I come back to Steve? Does any of that
yes,
ring a bell?
Yes. Yes, I could respond. The actual area of the building that we're talking about is a higher level than the swimming pool. So any water coming out of the pool would not affect the changing rooms or reception. It appears to be coming either through the walls or through leaks in the showers. It's penetrating into the structure of the building.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Marianne, does that sort of address some of those points, do you feel?
Yes, it does. It would make far more sense to my husband than me, though, of course. But
Okay.
I would also like to suggest that we need to add a third recommendation, but I will let other people make their points first.
Thank you, Councillor Rickson. Councillor Paul Hayward, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a great swimmer, but I have, through my youth, been in a great many rather dingy, terrible swimming pools in Slough. I'm sure Slough swimming pools have upped their game now, but in the 1980s they were very grim. And so I completely agree, yet again, with Councillor Allen that you know, it's supposed to be an amenity. It's an amenity for the people of Honiton. It's not performing, and thinking of the situation we're in at the moment, the report under 1.1, which says that the local heating issues with pump failures and ventilation system causes areas to be humid and stuffy. Well, with all that we're experiencing at the moment, there are two things that it cannot afford to be in a pandemic situation. So I'm happy to support the proposal as shown. Go for option 2, and thank you to Steve and his team for putting that together. And let's improve the facility. Let's get people healthy. Let's get them swimming. It's one of the prime activities for people's health on a variety of levels. So let's just crack on. Let's do it. What's the alternative? We cannot have a facility that's unsafe and not fit for purpose. So I don't wish to consider the alternative. Let's crack on with option 2. Let's spend the money and let's get it safe and aesthetically pleasing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hayward. And I look forward to seeing you and Councillor Allen splashing around in due course. Councillor Jack Rowland, please.
I'm sorry, I won't be able to get that vision out of my head now. I was struggling already with Councillor Allen running through Honiton High Street in his Speedos. Obviously, option 4 is we can't consider that. It's if we do sit back and did nothing whatsoever, the pool would have to close altogether. So that is just not an option that I wish to see, because swimming pools, although they are expensive to run, in my opinion, they are essential for the community. So I also support option 2. I just have one question, and I should know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask Simon Davey if he's still with us. I think he is when I last looked on the pictures, just to remind me where the money's coming from.
Okay, Simon, who is probably enjoying a quiet evening. Simon, are you ready to answer that?
Thank you, portfolio holder. That's very kind. The finance comment on the report highlights that if approved, it will need to go to council approval, and then will form part of our overall capital programme. So the capital programme is made up of a number of asks in terms of capital financing. If it's approved tonight and then goes through council, when next year's capital budget is presented, it will show us that amount already taken out of your allocation. So it's just, you'll just have to prioritise even harder next year when you come to look at the capital programme in terms of affordability. But it will come out of the capital programme, and we'll fund it with resources available.
Thank you, Simon, very much for that. Jack, do you want to come back on that, or are you happy with that?
No, thank you, Simon, for the response. Sorry if I put you on the spot then.
Thank you. Don't get mad, get even, Simon. Councillor Jess Bailey, please.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with the comments that have been made. I think it's absolutely essential for the people of Honiton that we crack on and start these works as soon as possible. I think, though, that the even after the works, people may have to change outside. I think I don't know whether there are any other swimmers here, but I believe that it's quite common for people to not actually be able to change because of COVID in swimming pool changing rooms. However, I think it's absolutely essential. So yes, please, let's go for option number 2.
Thank you very much, Jess. I've got a blue hand for Councillor Hayward. I'm not sure if that's a ghost or...
I just wish to say, following on from, if I may, Chair, from Simon's comments about the financial aspects of this, and touching on from Councillor Rowland's kind comments earlier, that I'm sure if it came to it, some sort of public subscription would probably raise £380,000 if it meant that Councillor Allen and I didn't have to run through Honiton in our Speedos. So there we are. Thank you.
Right. I'm not a rich man, but the first 100 is down. Okay. Councillor Marianne Rickson, please.
Thank you, Chair. As I said earlier, I would just like to ask whether we could perhaps add a third recommendation with regards to when we're refurbing and changing the quality of the building, whether perhaps the Cabinet could assess the potential for solar panels and or air source heat pumps to be installed to provide energy efficient heating of the Honiton swimming pool, taking advantage of government-backed schemes where possible, with the aim of greatly reducing the carbon footprint and saving money in the long term. This should be seen as a trial before rollout to all LED pools and sports centres wherever viable. I put that forward.
Thank you, Marianne. So that's obviously coming from Marianne with her climate action portfolio holder hat on. Steve, just listening to Marianne suggest that obviously it's a separate project, isn't it? But out of interest, does Honiton Pool have the potential for that kind of alternative energy powering?
Certainly, yes, it does, Chair. Both solar and air source heat pumps could be considered.
Thank you very much, Steve. Okay, Marianne, can you just could you read that one out again, please, so that we can all hear it before taking a vote, and to give Henry time to write very, very quickly.
Okay, recommendation 3, Cabinet to assess the potential for solar panels and or air source heat pumps to be installed to provide energy efficient heating of the Honiton swimming pool, taking advantage of government-backed schemes where possible, with the aim of greatly reducing the carbon footprint and saving money in the long term. This should be seen as a trial before rollout to all LED pools and sports centres wherever viable. I hope that wasn't too quick.
No, that was okay. Could you email that through, please?
Thank you.
Yes, I'll
So
do.
Henry.
I'll send it to Henry. Do you want it over chat or do you want it by email?
Email will be preferable, please.
Okay, I'll do that. Yes, that'll be fine.
Thank you.
I believe I got the gist of that, Cabinet. Are you happy that you did too? Or rather, put your hand up if you're not and you need to hear it again.
The proposer and seconder are happy to have it included.
Yes. Proposer, can you say that you're happy to have that included or not? Whoever you may be.
I think I was. I might be wrong, and I'll be corrected. But I think I was the proposer. I'm more than happy to have that included as an addition.
Okay. We had a seconder. Who was it?
Councillor Rowland.
It was Jack. Are you happy with that, Jack?
Yes.
Thank you, Jack, very much. Okay, Cabinet, we have those 3 recommendations. Please, if you are happy to accept those, can you vote with a green cross for yes, green tick for yes, red cross for no, blue hand for abstain. Thank you.
Okay, for those watching online, the vote is underway, and yes, it's carried, Chair.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Steve, for your report and for your responses to the questions. Invaluable, thank you. We come to our final item of tonight, which is more informal really, but very important nevertheless, which is to, agenda item 19 is regarding the Poverty Working Panel, and this is to receive a verbal summary from Councillor Megan Armstrong, within whose portfolio this sits, of the initial discussions and ways forward of the newly formed panel. Megan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's fairly brief, this, because members will be receiving the minutes of this meeting later this week. Most members will be aware of this newly formed working panel, which is made up of 10 members and which met for the first time on the 12th of October. And it was established to contribute towards the formation of the Council's first even East Devon poverty strategy. This initial meeting was intended to explore the issues and set the context. John Golding, Libby Jarrett and Helen Wareham joined the panel on that date, speaking on the terms of reference, the Council's poverty report and the Marmot report. John also explained the limitations and opportunities within the Council's remit and what district councils can do to tackle poverty. And I suppose, even more important, what they can't do to tackle poverty. As chair, I was really pleased that this cross-party group contributed positively with plenty of suggestions as to what should be included in our poverty strategy. They also expressed their commitment to ensuring that as a council, we would do everything in our power to relieve poverty in whatever form it takes throughout the district. COVID-19 has inevitably contributed to a worsening of issues related to poverty, including budgeting and high levels of indebtedness, higher levels of unemployment, and increasing job losses when the government's furlough scheme ends. Poverty and the reasons for it is a massive subject and is far-reaching and cross-cutting into other areas of the council. However, any actions undertaken by the council need to be both evidence-based and, wherever possible, address the root causes of poverty. The panel is keen to move things forward as swiftly as possible, especially in the current COVID-19 climate, to focus on the development of the poverty strategy, its implementation, and subsequent monitoring. So to this end, the second meeting will be held on the 11th of November, just a month from the first one, to explore the next stages in the formation of the strategy. Future possibilities could include briefings to the panel and probably also to the full council if they wish to attend, from such organisations as the Department for Work and Pensions and Citizens Advice. So therefore, promoting partnership working, which will ultimately benefit all those residents who need our help. The minutes of this first poverty working panel, as I mentioned earlier, will be distributed to all members this week. And I think it's probably best for you to receive those. And, you know, I'm happy to answer any questions now if people have them or any comments. But to look at the minutes and, you know, we'll take forward any thoughts that other people have into the next meeting if needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Megan. Really grateful to hear about the beginnings of that very important piece of work, and good luck as that goes forward. We'll want to hear everything you've got to tell us as that happens. Now, there's no vote to be taken on this, anybody, but if anybody wishes to speak on it, please do. Other than that, I think we can probably note that and look forward to the meeting. Yeah, Councillor Mike Allen, in you come, please.
I did forward an extensive, detailed set of proposals before this panel was formed, but it seems to have disappeared in the woodwork of trying to get it together. So I will look forward to sending that again to Megan, because one of the key things is that we haven't, in any of the papers and approaches so far, actually defined who and what kinds of poverty exist. And if we're going to look at it from an evidence-based viewpoint, and if we're going to look at root causes, then that's one of the things that I think we need to actually do. Now, the Campaign for Social Justice has investigated this thoroughly, and the Joseph Rowntree Foundation has done a lot of work in this area. So I think that if we're really wanting to be serious about solving the issue of poverty, we really need to drill down into looking at what causes it, what types of poverty exist, and what the multiple factors are. And bearing in mind that there was a troubled families program which did its damnedest with a lot of money to solve problems for the particularly acute families, and it failed, we really have to make sure that whatever we do is value for money, as well as effective, as well as going to really do good, which is what we all want to do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Allen. And yes, I'm certain that, well, Megan, do you want to come back on that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of consensus between the two of you. Go on.
Just a couple of comments. Mike, I did actually acknowledge the document that you sent at our meeting. I don't know if you remember that or not. And we did say, and I think John also said it, that we would be taking all of the document that you'd sent us, which was a kind of an outline strategy, into account when we draw everything together. So it certainly hasn't been forgotten, if that's the document that you're referring to. So it certainly hasn't been forgotten, and it won't be forgotten. It'll all be taken into account. And what was the other thing he said? Oh yeah, about evidence. The evidence that I keep referring to is mainly about our own poverty report, which was done last year by Libby and Amy. And I think that's the starting point for the evidence. Obviously, it will continue to be updated, especially with COVID, but there's a heck of a lot of evidence in there about where the poverty issues are. I don't know whether Libby is still with us, whether Libby wants to comment on that at all or not, but certainly that's what I keep thinking about. And evidence, national evidence as well, but I think we have to really try and focus on what the issues are in our own district. That's the important thing.
Thank you very much, Megan. We've got Councillor Brewster Sarum, who might be coming on to congratulate Marcus Rashford, whose school meals petition, I understand, has just passed 1 million signatures in the last hour. I don't know. Bruce, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. That is indeed absolutely moving. I've got a very quick question for Megan. Is when does she anticipate the briefings to the panel? Because she may have seen that I sent her an email from the lady, the chair of the new Exmouth Chamber of Commerce, because they are very keen to meet with you, Megan, keen to get involved. And so I just thought I'd ask that question while I had you on the line, as it were.
Yeah, I knew you were going to be asking me that, Bruce. It's one of the things I haven't got round to answering yet. I'm sorry, I've been rather busy the last couple of weeks. But thank you for sending that on to me. And yes, I will talk to her. And I think it's something that we need to bear in mind for future. I don't think at these early stages of setting up the strategy and all of that, I don't think quite yet. But certainly in future, there may well be a role for somebody from the Chamber of Commerce, yes. So I haven't forgotten, and I will be in touch with her. So apologies for not doing it before now.
No,
Bruce.
Thank you. I appreciate you're very busy, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Bruce and Megan. Okay, I think finally over to Councillor Steve Gazzard, please.
Thank you, Chair. It was just following on from the comment that you made about free meals. I just wanted to express my grateful thanks to all the businesses in my hometown of Exmouth that have taken up the challenge. And I actually saw some this morning where free meals will be given out to young children. I think it's extraordinary what local businesses are doing for our underprivileged children. And it's happening right across East Devon, and it makes you proud to live in our towns that we do, because the shops and cafes are pulling together. They've had a hard time, but they can see that this is what is wanted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much for mentioning that, Steve. Cabinet, I think we need to note that, remember that, and I think we probably need to reflect in due course on the efforts that Steve has mentioned, which are across the towns of East Devon. And I think in due course, when we have the intel on that, we should write to those businesses ourselves to thank him. But let's leave that for another day. Okay, thank you very much. Cabinet, all we have to do here is to say that we're happy to note this update. let's vote on that. Green tick for yes, red cross for no, blue hand if you're Scrooge enough to abstain. Thank you. All right.
Okay, for those watching online, the vote is underway. Yes, the vote is carried, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Sue. Right. Okay, everybody, in which things an end. And I'd like to thank everyone, including any members of the public watching online, for taking part today. I just need to remind all of those present that the supporting officer will confirm when the meeting is no longer being recorded or going live. And until then, of course, your comments will be live to the public. Thank you very much indeed.